Hello guys, welcome back to the crew calling all units 2017, because that's what we are, January 1st, 2017. First of all, Happy New Year to you and your family. Happy New Year to all my subscribers and viewers. The crew 2017, what will it bring? Well, that is something that we have to wait and see, I guess. I hope they keep the game going for a couple of years, but I don't know. Some announcements on future upgrades that they put out a list there, and there's kinda well, as a long-term player and also as an ex Need for Speed World player, I see some signs that were kind of a bit worrying. Apparently they're gonna bring cars into the Summit qualifiers as well, as a reward, that is. Existing cars, which means that long-term players don't have anything to play for because we already have all cars. Just like in the crate missions, you can win full stocks, I'm assuming, from cars that are already in the game. So that's all to please new players, which makes sort of believe that, yep, as a new player you can get your hands pretty quickly on all the cars and gives you the experience to drive all the cars, and that is usually, although it might sound cool, that usually is a bad sign, because that usually means that they want all players to have all cars, and then you come to the conclusion, okay, the game is slightly dying out. But apparently the word is that they're working on something major since January 2016, and they're all far from done with it, because according to some job advertisements out there, they are looking for 20-25 more people to hire to get this thing going. What is that thing? Well, nobody knows, of course. At Gamescom, some of the devs said that they were not far from done with this game yet. So is it an expansion for this game? Will be the Crew 2, or will it just be another racing game? We will see in the future, I guess. Let's just hope they keep it going. As for now, I decided new year, new series on the channel, playlist that is comparison tests. Meanwhile, for instance, in performance we already have 85 specs now with all the new calling all units, cars and all that. So that's if you're gonna test them all against each other, that's a bit, well, undoable. So I've tested all cars separately already in a driving all cars series, which I will keep going if there are new cars into the game, which I'm kinda hoping. I'm kinda hoping that they will still bring a new car every summit, and then they can do existing cars in the qualifiers. I don't mind that. Eventually the result will be the same. Long-term players, we always win 5,000 crew credits in the summits and 20,000 in the second month's summit, because in the first month we usually already won the car. But we'll see. So I kinda categorized them for all the specs, that is, and that means that there will be 6 categories for the street specs. So the in-game categories that we have, meaning hot hatch for Street 1, Street 2 will be the sport cars, Street 3 the muscle cars, Street 4 the retro cars, Street 5 utility cars, and Street 6 the bikes. That's sort of how I will be doing it. I will be doing it the same. Sometimes we will have a bit more subcategories. If you also have hypercars and such, then you have 8 or 9 categories. But for the street it will be only 6 categories, which means I will be creating 6 videos. When I do these videos, not one by one, I will just, whenever I have time to do them, and I will just put them out there on a new playlist, and somewhere post them on the site. Next to it I will also be doing summit stuff, and as usual. So we'll start with Street 1, the hot hatches. 4 contenders, the Abarth 500, which is an A segment car as we call that here, which are small city cars. We have a Mini Cooper S, which is the B segment car, which are more, well, a bit more bigger city cars. And then we have 2 cars in the C segment, the Ford Focus and the Volkswagen Golf. Although the versions are not really competition in real life, because we have a Ford Focus RS and a Volkswagen Golf GTI. The GTI normally you have to put that up against the Ford Focus ST, but that is not in this game. And the Ford Focus RS you have to put up against the Volkswagen Golf R, which is also not in this game. I'm kinda hoping that one day they will bring the Golf R as a performance spec. That will be because that also has, just like the Focus, 4-wheel drive, and the GTI only has front wheel drive. So it's not really comparable, but yeah, we're gonna test the hot hatches against each other anyway. that's kind of the idea we're doing here. So we'll start with this Abarth 500. Abarth is just like Shelby is for Ford and Rough is for Porsche, sort of an official tuner, but meanwhile it became a brand on its own. So it's a Fiat 500, but it is retuned a bit, and 1.4 turbo engine, 135 horsepower in full stock. That's how it comes. But they gave it quite some extra power if you put this thing into street spec. Let's have a look. 359 horsepower, 487 newton meters of torque, and 970 kilograms of weight, which means it's the lightest. It's pretty lightweight if you look at it like that, compared to the other ones. At least they go over 1000 kilograms. We are in the Midwest. I created a track here, a free drive challenge. Foxtrot Victor Papa Charlie Romeo Lima Quebec. FVP CRL Q. That's the code for this free drive challenge if you want to do it. And it's sort of a replica of Rushmore, one of the favorite races in PvP if you go for street spec. It's very often chosen in this, and I sort of try to recreate it, although it might be a bit longer here or there. I think the start is sort of accurate. If I'm not mistaken, it kind of starts here, and but the finish is a bit longer, I believe. In PvP race we start, or we finish just before the tunnel at the end there, and well, a small tunnel going through a rock. And now we finish just behind it, but nevertheless. If you put this thing on hood cam, or for any car on hood cam, I usually drive on hood cam, and a bit lucky with traffic and all, I'm pretty sure you can do a time under 3 minutes. But in the runs we will see here, I'm not gonna get 3 minutes, but try to get at least some smooth lines and not hit too much traffic. That's the idea. What I also will be doing is trying to stay on the road as much as possible. I know you can shortcut 2 or 3 corners on this track. I'm not gonna do that. This thing understeers a bit, so you have to slow down on the corners, especially with the keyboard. Like this, you can jump here on the left, I know that, because otherwise you get this situation here on this corner. Also a reason because well, the brakes are not that superb on this car, compared to the other ones at least, not. I also saw people winning in PvP with this car, so I'm assuming that for a wheel or control driver who can steer sharper than me with my keyboard, I'm assuming that you can get smooth corners with this thing, which is not the case with the keyboard, because you're sort of limited on steering, and you sort of have a steering lock if you play with the keyboard, and yeah, that makes you lose some time here and there. Also here you have to brake heavy or you will end up in the grass there somewhere. But like I said, normally I drive on hood cam, which makes it, yeah, I guess a bit more used to it that than in this view, but at least this time driving like this you can see the car. That's already something. A player standing there, which also means that we will have more traffic, because that is how it goes. If there are more players around, you will have more traffic. Also depends a bit on the day or night time. And not to mention the free drive challenge itself. Does it want to stop? Does it want to finish? Because it's all a bit buggy. Since the release of Calling All Unit, it didn't really improve. It only got worse. Crewing up with your friends is also a bit of a problem, which half the time you can't do, and in my opinion that is because Calling All Units is kinda messing about with the system. As you can see here, we already finished, but the game decided not to give the finish yet. It will give the finish time though, it just takes a bit longer to finish. We did a 3:06.109. I'm pretty sure if you can drive a bit smoother that you can do under 3 minutes with all the 4 cars that we are testing here. especially on Rushmore, which finishes before that little tunnel here. You can already win 2-3 seconds there, because Rushmore itself finishes a bit sooner than this track. But nevertheless, it understeers a bit, the brakes are not that good, so we'll see. That's for the Abarth. Contender number 2, which is like 2 categories higher, the Golf GTI. Like I said, the Golf R has 4-wheel drive, for motion as they call it in Volkswagen Group. But not this one. The Golf GTI only has front-wheel drive. So the competition coming from the Ford Focus ST and of course in other cars in that region, Renault Megane, Peugeot 308, Seat Leon, cars like that. That's sort of the compact family cars, or whatever you want to call it. 2-liter turbo engine, 220 horsepower in full stock version, but also this one gets some extra power if you put it in street spec. 375 horsepower, 569 meters of Newton meters of torque, and 1174 kilograms, which means 200 kilograms heavier. So it has 20 horsepower more than the Abarth, but also 200 kilograms heavier than that one. But also this one suffers a bit from understeer. Brakes are a bit better, but yeah, we'll see. What we're sort of trying to do in this video, in first one at least, is trying to figure out which one is the best hot hatch in street spec. I already done a video once where I tested all the cars in street spec against each other, and then this one doesn't score that high, but people out there meanwhile know which one are the best specs, so, or which one are the best cars in each spec. So I thought, let's do something different and do them in subcategories, which would also be a good idea if the devs would actually listen to us, because, well, it's not like this game is dead, but it has potential, but they're just not using it. And it's there, and it doesn't come with a lot of programming, I think. Like for instance, they have put it in the game itself. They call the hot hatches, they call it muscle cars, they call it sports cars. And sometimes you have summit qualifiers where you can only use supercars or sports cars or whatever. But in PvP, for instance, they don't do that. They should subcategorize it. For instance, if you can use a street hot hatch, then you can only use the 4 cars that you will see in this video. And it can't be that hard to do. They only need to divide the street specs into some S1, S2, S3, and the performance specs, the same story. Now everyone is driving the same cars, which makes it some of these cars completely useless in this game, unless you want to just cruise around in it. Like if you take this one to PvP, yeah, most likely gonna have quite some fight with this car to get it somewhere, and winning will probably not be an option. Because the people out there are using Skylines and Minis and BRZs, and yeah, they just smoke this thing. Just like the Abarth, for that matter. Some tracks the Abarth works I've seen, but I'm assuming that will be for wheel drivers or so, because for me it completely understeers, and seeing I have a steering lock playing as a keyboard player, it's also not really a contender in my opinion. The Abarth nor this Golf. So I'm pretty sure that this thing will also not win the hot hatch categories. But at least we could use it if they would subcategorize PvP races. Since we can only use 4 cars, you already have a better chance of winning with this thing than if you can use all the cars. And again, here it takes quite a while before we actually do the finish. And we do the finish in a 3081.1, which is about 2 seconds slower than the Abarth. Which is kinda normal, because the Abarth is a little faster than this thing. I'm even thinking that out of with the other two that are still coming, that probably this one will be the slowest of the 4. Most likely. Contender number 3, the Ford Focus RS. In the same category as the Golf, but only, yeah, then you have to put it up against the Golf R. Or bring a Ford Focus ST to put that one up against the Golf GTI. But yeah, it is what it is. This is the 10,010 version, and if I'm not mistaken, that one had a 2.5 turbo engine with 305 horsepower it comes, for this one at least, 429 for the street spec, 681 Newton meters of torque and 1261 kilograms, so it's even heavier than the Golf and about 300 kilograms heavier than the Abarth. This is the normal RS. They made the RS 500, suggesting the 500. I think that they only made 500 of those things, but that had 350 horsepower if I'm not mistaken, and this one has 305. I think it was a 2.5 turbo engine, can also be a 2.0 turbo engine, 2-liter turbo EcoBoost, which they later put in these things. This one has 4-wheel drive, or at least it's supposed to have it, which makes it quite good for some tracks in performance, for instance. And it is the most powerful, as well in full stock as in street spec here. It's the most powerful out of the 4 that we will be testing. It's the only one that has more than 400 horsepower in this test, so we'll see. But it's also the heaviest, so yeah, it needs more horsepower, I guess. It's all a bit logic. They sort of try to level out the cars in this game, and seeing the Abarth, for instance, is the lightest of the 4, kind of makes sense that it also has the least horsepower. Although it's not that far off from the Golf and the Mini. But this one is heavier, so that's why it has about 50 horsepower more than the Golf and the Mini in this game, in street spec. Bit of road here, but like I said, this thing has 4-wheel drive, so you're not gonna slide about too much in there, even if you go up the road for half a second. That car is going to be a problem. Kinda okay. Has a bit long gears though, and yeah. But then again, you can win it again in corners like this, because this thing can wall ride like, well, not any car in this game. If you take this thing out in performance spec and you go to proving grounds, also a PvP race, you can actually win from a Huayra just by wall riding 3 or 4 corners there. And it's a 5-lap loop track, so yeah, you can actually win with it if you know what you're doing. And also in the big chill eliminator, this is one of the cars that you can use there, because with the Huayra and a Ferrari you slide all over the place, seeing it's full of icy and snowy roads there. This thing, Aventador, Gallardo maybe, something with 4-wheel drive you need there in Salt Lake City, and that's why this one is pretty good there. And also here on our little test track, it seems to go a bit smoother than the other two. but you needed to give it some nitro here and there to give it extra acceleration, which it's supposed to have a bit more now at 4097, because the top speeds are the same, 1299 or 4097, but they give a bit more acceleration, a bit more braking and grip stats. That's sort of what it does. But it's still the fastest though, so far. 305.9, although that's only 0.2 faster than the Abarth. But yeah, it was not as smooth of a run, this one, but it's kinda normal that this thing is the fastest, because it's not even that bad. But there are just better cars out there in street spec. But for the hot hatches, it definitely is the second one out of the rest, because yeah, you also have this Mini Cooper S 1.6 turbo engine, 172 horsepower in full stock, but also this one gets about 200 horsepower more, coming to a total of 378 horsepower. That's 3 horsepower more than the Golf, and about 20 more than the Abarth, about 50 less than the Focus. But this thing weighs less than the Focus, and for those who don't know yet, yeah, it's one of the best in street spec in general, not only for the hot hatches but in general. 378 horsepower, 513 newton meters of torque, so it has a bit less torque than the others, I think, at least compared to the Focus, and it weighs 1000 kilograms. 1100 kilograms for the Golf, 1200 for the Focus, and 900 for the Abarth, so it's the second lightest, and also a pretty small one, so yeah, it all makes sense. What you see here is the Street Edition version, because I have that one at 4097 and the normal one I don't have at still have at 1299. So, but that doesn't mean any difference. Performance-wise, handling-wise, the Street Edition and the normal street spec of the normal Mini Cooper, they are exactly the same. That Street Edition pack, there are 4 cars in that pack. It's a DLC pack, and yeah, it's completely useless. You get a full stock, you get a Street Edition, and that's it. It doesn't have any other specs, so if you want to have a dirt performance rate circuit spec for this car, then you still need to buy the normal one, or at least that was the case in the past. Now you can win all those things in the crates, but us long-term players with all the cars, we had to pay for all it using in-game bucks. I bought a complete edition, and that's why the reason why I have these Street Editions, they were included in that one. I don't know if they are included in the season pass, I don't think so. But if you buy a complete edition or a ultimate edition of this game, then it will probably be there. Just like the 3 others in the Street Editions. Let's see, BMW Z4, Ford Mustang 2015 and the Dodge Ram. They also have a Street Edition. But also if you buy the normal Mini, that one has a street spec, so you can also just buy that, and it's completely the same as this one. This one comes with a few special stickers and rims that you can get extra. But performance wise, handling wise, it's exactly the same as the normal one. But you can already see it, it's lighter, it goes smoother, the handling is better on this car than on the 3 others, and yeah. You can already sort of estimate in advance that this thing is going to be the fastest of the 4. Oops, unless you do things like this. But we'll continue anyway, because who knows, still by me might be faster. It was a pretty, although it was a jump and we went off-road, but it was a pretty smooth jump, so it's not like we lost 5 seconds there. That, for instance, is a typical keyboard problem. You slightly have to tap the brakes there With someone with a wheel, definitely doesn't have to do on that corner, they can just throw it in. But as I said, even with that off-road jump that we did there on the rock, it's still the fastest. It's 2 seconds faster than the Focus. Almost 3 seconds even. A 3.03.0. That's what we get here. The fastest so is Mini Cooper, then the Focus, then the Abarth, and then the Golf, which I guess in a way makes it sorta normal. Out of these hot hatches, it's kinda more or less the ranking that I kinda anticipated on. Although it might change a bit, and I'm also pretty sure if you get pretty clean runs that you can get times around 3 minutes or just under it with these cars. That is for sure. But I think the ranking that we sort of have here now is the Mini Cooper, the Ford Focus, the Fiat Abarth and the Volkswagen Golf. It's kinda accurate. Even if you go faster and you go smoother with all these cars, you will sort of still have the same ranking. The Focus close to the Cooper and the Golf and the Abarth close to each other, but a bit behind the 2 first cars. And that sorta makes it what it is, I guess. So quick look here again. So street hot hatch, that is the ones that we have done here. So next up will be the street sports, where we have to test 5 cars. I'm gonna do them, let's see, I'm gonna do all of them at the same track. Might be a bit of a problem with the corners with the bikes, but sports, muscle, retro, utility cars, they will kinda work on that track no matter what. We'll see you guys in the next one, and bye for now.